Hello and welcome. Today we're talking to Don Jones of Dallas Corporate Aerospace Services. We're going to discuss where the drone industry is headed, what opportunities people are missing, and why aviation and the drone technology may create opportunities that many people never considered. So welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Well, now, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at Dallas Corporate Aerospace Services and how you got into drones.
So for me, it started with a long career as a corporate aircraft mechanic. I'm primarily a Gulfstream aircraft mechanic by trade. I'm a G450 Master Tech. That and I actually am dual role, so I started out with that, but I also have a long career with the military as well. I just recently retired from the Air National Guard, but started out active duty Air Force back in the early 90s. So, but those have both given me opportunities for travel, both in the United States and also worldwide. So it's given me a really good worldview with being able to have those opportunities for travel. So, but where it actually transitioned for me from going as a corporate aircraft mechanic to looking at drone operations was it was actually because I come from a technical background. I'm always looking at my toolbox as as that is kind of my means for being able to generate revenue, is the tools that I have in my toolbox. It's aside from the technical experience that I have as a technician, it's the tools that I bring to a particular job site that really helps me generate that revenue. So I started out recently. I had an opportunity to do a pre-purchase inspection for a Gulfstream client, and from my days working at Gulfstream for the manufacturer, I worked in the service center, and one of our best practices was to do a video inbound inspection for the aircraft, so that way if there was ever any cause for to
go back and look and say, hey, was this there before?
Right. Exactly. So if there was something missing, or if there was a scratch now that the client said wasn't there before, then we could go back and review the visuals on the recording to be able to see what condition it was in. So for me, then I'm doing a pre-purchase inspection on behalf of a client, and I'm thinking, it would actually be value added to provide video documentation, so that then the client can take that's just purchasing the aircraft can take the video and have that as a visual record that they could either keep for their own records. They can use that for an insurance company who may be wanting to insure the aircraft. What condition is the aircraft in? Is it in a whole bunch of pieces in the middle of a hangar, or is it actually a viable aircraft? They have a visual record that they can use. Same with the finance company. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, just like you would finance a car, if a financial institution is asked to finance the purchase of that aircraft, then they have something that they can put into their portfolio that they can keep as a visual record of, this is a snapshot of what the aircraft looks like right now, versus, say there's something that happens to the aircraft later on, it gets run into by a tug or something like that, then they can go back and review the original records versus a visual record for now, and be able to say, okay, yes, we see where this took place, versus any kind of other situation. So for me, it made sense to have a visual record that I could provide as something that I could give to a client for their visual records. And so now I have a drone. So now what's the next step? Now I have this tool in my toolbox. Well, I don't want to just wait until the next pre-purchase inspection. What else can I do with that? So then, just like a short while after I purchased my drone, then I found out about the Texas Department of Transportation had an aviation conference that was happening in Frisco. And so I was like, you know, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign up for that conference. You know, for me as an aircraft mechanic, I'm interested in maybe there's something that I can do with my drone beyond just doing the pre-purchase inspection video documentation. So I ended up going to this conference, and I walk in the exhibit hall, and then I see construction companies. Then I see engineering firms. I see runway asphalt repaving companies that are all represented at this conference, and I'm thinking every single one of these people could make use of drone operations to enhance what they're doing, and a lot of people are already, a lot of companies are already doing that. So for me, then I find that as an aircraft mechanic, then I can support airport infrastructure in new and different ways where I'm already on an airport property. So I'm used to working with the airport culture and being able to interact with the people that are there. And so where a construction company, where an engineering firm may be doing, being asked by airport management to do work on the airport property, I can provide them with a skill set that I'm already using to be able to help support in that form and fashion. So that's what kind of brought me into this. And then,
well, let me ask you.
Yes.
Right here. So you said a mouthful that I think a lot of people don't think of, in that we don't think outside of the box when we have an opportunity. When we just think, okay, drone pilot, let me just do weddings, or drone pilot, let me just ask my friend who's a real estate agent. So we don't look at all the other ways in which we could start an income stream with this drone, or with a new stream of income, one. And two, with you, so Gulfstream aircraft are private aircraft, right?
Yes.
So then that's, I know, being in aviation, that right now the FAA is trying to determine how to incorporate using drones at the airport for construction, for fleet inspections, those types of things. And so you figured out a way, because you're already there, to introduce this to a new clientele, whereby they're already needing to capture images of their property. So now that might be a baby step towards private inspections to commercial aircraft inspections. So I just wanted to say that's a great way to look at it, as baby stepping your way through and building those streams of income and networking.
Yes, and even in the aviation ecosystem, there are drone operations that are kind of cutting edge, that are just starting to really come into fruition now. They're using drones in certain use cases where they're using them for general visual inspections of aircraft. So they're incorporating artificial intelligence to be able to fly a specific pattern around a particular kind of aircraft. So say, for instance, it's a Boeing 777, 787, something like that, where they've already preloaded in the aircraft structure into a model, and then they're using artificial intelligence and all of the obstacle avoidance sensing, all of that kind of stuff, to take visuals of a specific aircraft, and then if they see an anomaly, a little dent, a little ding, a little bit of corrosion, then the artificial intelligence can recognize that as this is something that we need to look at, and then it becomes an enhancement tool for a mechanic to say, okay, now it's generated a report of all of these little inspection items that now I can take that and go back to an airframe and power plant mechanic who's certified to look at those things, and then they can do a deeper dive and look at, okay, we've identified this as an anomaly. Is it a true anomaly, or is it something that it's like, oh no, this is something that we don't need to inspect any further, or is it oh yes, this is definitely something that we need to look at. So even with the newest technology that's coming out, they're incorporating drones inspections into that, and it's never going to be, I don't think it'll be something that would replace an actual aircraft mechanic. It makes their job a lot easier to be able to, now what would normally take, maybe 200 hours of labor time to inspect every inch of an aircraft, now they can use and they can fly an aircraft and do that in about 20 minutes. So but then it doesn't take away from what the mechanic does. It just simply makes it so that it enhances their ability to get that inspection done more efficiently, more quickly.
Well, I think this speaks to that some people embrace technology, and while others don't. Why do you feel that is? It seems like you being being a hands-on person, a mechanic, but you are not fearing that it's going to take away my job. But whilst other mechanics, you might know of a few who are saying, well, I don't want to do that. It's going to take away my job.
So I'll give you a good example. So I was helping to support a Gulfstream aircraft where I had to do some work up in Delaware. And while I was doing this one job, then I stepped off the aircraft and I looked at the outside, and I saw some telltale signs of something that just caught my eye. And it happens that the aircraft had been struck by lightning. So for me, I worked in the service center at Gulfstream and worked on the drop-in crew for about the first 2.5 years that I was at Gulfstream. And the drop-in crew, that was one of the things that we did, we had known lightning strikes that would come in, and then we would go in, we would inspect the aircraft, we would find all of the areas where it got struck by lightning, and then we would send a report up to engineering, and then they would give us repair instructions for this particular aircraft. So with taking that knowledge into, now I'm going to this offsite location and doing a completely separate job, then I identified that, hey, the aircraft got struck by lightning. So I contacted the pilots. Hey, did you know that it got struck by lightning? No, they didn't know. I talked to the aircraft manager. Did you know it got struck by lightning? No, I didn't know. So for me, then it was like I was able to take my previous knowledge and identify that the aircraft was struck by lightning. In the same regard, when it comes to an aircraft inspection, an aircraft can go in for a maintenance inspection, and if a technician has never had an opportunity to identify this is what a lightning strike looks like, then you can take drone operations where the artificial intelligence has all of this information input, and he can go, the AI can then go beyond what an aircraft mechanic has experienced, and it will identify these things on an aircraft fuselage and say, oh, you need to take a look at this because it's identified, yes, this got struck by lightning, and that can flag something to a mechanic who may not have experience in that area to say, oh, I didn't even know to look at this area because I just simply didn't have that working knowledge of this is what a lightning strike looks like, or it got wiped down, and so some of the telltale marks of a a lightning strike may not be there, but for someone who has experienced that before, that detail will jump out at them, and that's where sometimes the drone operations will help enhance the mechanic's viewpoint of saying, okay, it's identified something that I might not have the experience with, but now that it's identified that, then I can go back and review this and say, oh yes, I can see where, now that I'm looking at this more closely, I can see some of those marks where this is a significant find. So in that way, yes, drone operations can be a useful tool. But again, it goes back to, it enhances what a mechanic is able to do. It doesn't replace them. It just simply enhances their ability to do a better job of inspection.
So at TCB Drones, one of the things that we do is we offer virtual drone pilot prep courses to help people to pass the Part 107. Mm-hmm. And so that's the beginning. That's what we tell them. What would be, and our conversation proves that that is just the beginning. There's still more technology and more skills to learn as to what you could do with your drone and as a drone pilot. So my question is, why is that important? I guess we've just answered that, because technology is fast moving, and of course, I'm sure you remember, I remember when you had to walk to the TV to change the channel, and there was only 5 channels, and mm-hmm. and now there's countless channels, and technology has just moved. There was no cell phones, now there's, so all these things. So bringing drones into the situation, into an equation, is not the end of the story. There's still more to be done. Right.
It actually, that opens the door to a whole new world of possibilities. Drone operations are, and they're not even being used just in the sky. They're being used in the sea as well. There are underwater drones that they're using for inspection of oil rigs, or mm-hmm. or underwater, pipe that may be laid down at great depths in the sea, where operating manned may not even be an option. They're using them for all kinds of different aspects, and that's where, as a drone operator, then it opens up opportunities for you as a pilot to be able to do use your skill set that you've already worked on, and again, get back to using that as a tool for something that's already within your skill set to be able to enhance what you're already accomplishing. So, but it also opens up new opportunities too. So, for instance, for me, one of the things that I, as a technical aviator, wanted to do with where I wanted to bring my career was, I wanted to help be a problem solver with like accident investigations. An airplane crashes. What happened? How did it happen? Was there a mechanical failure? What can I do to solve the problem with, this is the reason why the aircraft crashed? So I can use a drone to be able to fly over a crash site, and then be able to give even more of a perspective than just like an investigation that everything happens on the ground. And the direction. Now, this is one thing that is absolutely amazing to me, is even when we talk about advanced technologies like photogrammetry and orthomosaics, they are starting to take that to a new level, to where you're able to take some of the photogrammetry data and you're able to then make it its own ecosystem. So say for instance you're flying a drone and you gather data for a photogrammetry project. You can now, with certain software that they're developing, you can take that information and you can add additional information to it. So say for instance you were using a drone to fly in a factory. And you did an aerial view of the factory floor. Well, now you can select on a machine that may be on the factory floor. You can select that. They have sensors that will give you real-time statistical data about that machine. You can use that to put in part number, serial number information. You can have a historical record of that machine that you can incorporate into that photogrammetry. So it goes beyond just a visual. Now it's a whole ecosystem. But the drone is just a part of that ecosystem. So that's where you as a drone pilot can then become a problem solver and be able to come up with a solution to a client's problem. So it all comes down to the intended purpose of a drone is not just to have it as an asset, but have it as a means to create a solution from a client's unique problem.
So I have two more questions, and one is, when we first met over the phone, what made you call me instead of calling someone else to introduce yourself and say, this is a project I'm working on and I know that you have drone pilots that could benefit from this?
Yes. Okay. So there's two things that for me that made me engage you. Number one, I knew you were local. So and for me, I'm very much someone who I like being personable. I like being able to make the human connection. It's one thing to call someone on the phone and say, hey, and doing an engagement like that. But it's an entirely, it's on another level when you can actually make a human contact with someone and say, this is who I trust. I can come to this person and I know that they're going to be there, versus someone who's just a phone call and they may be in another state, or they don't. There may be some things about the relevance of being in the local area where I need that. And so that's where, for me, when I first contacted you, I'm thinking about this NTSB investigation kind of a thing, and I need graduates who may be able to emotionally disconnect from what could be a terrible situation. So I need to have someone who meets certain criteria requirements, and because you have worked with these remote pilots who are now graduates, then you have a better understanding of the type of clientele that I may be needing to address. But your graduates have a certain skill set, and it goes back to, the drone operations is a part of it, but for someone who may need to emotionally disconnect from that situation, then I may be looking for someone who has a law enforcement background or who has a military background, who can help me with a situation like this, to where we can be on site to a potentially it could be a bad situation, but we're emotionally disconnected from that, and we're becoming problem solvers. And that's where, for me, there are certain times when a certain background skill set is what I'm looking for in addition to the drone operation. So either a visual observer or someone who can help be a secondary remote pilot in a certain situation, that's where that helps. Now, the other part of it too, and the reason that I contacted you, is for lack of better terminology, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I strongly recognize, and I'm a big proponent of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In my professional background, I've always recognized the fact that that people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, bring their own learned skill sets that help enhance what I'm trying to accomplish. Someone who has a certain background, cultural backgrounds, or the way that their upbringing or whatever really enhances what our combined successes will look like. If everyone, say for instance, if everyone that you come in contact with is a person who eats burgers and fries, and that's all that they eat, they may not have any clue about what they're missing when they go out for Indian food or Thai food or Mexican food or whatever. So in the same regard, we all bring our own flavors to the table, and then that diversity, that equity, that inclusive mentality really enhances what we are able to accomplish. So for me, that was one thing that I saw through your offerings, was that you bring an entirely different skill set than like what I might have access to, and I really appreciate that about what you can help me with, and bringing something that is completely different. So that's where I saw two very valuable things in what you can bring to me, and so that's what brought me to you.
And thanks for that. So we will be, and I've introduced you to some of our graduates who have that. Our focus is on non-tech savvy people, helping them to bring them into technology and become certified drone pilots. So you're right in that our target market is not normally the target market that people think of as drone pilots. So we look forward to working with you. And lastly, what would be your advice to anyone who's still on the fence about, well, should I get my Part 107 or should I not? If someone just asks you, like you mentioned, meeting someone in the hallway on the way here who's trying to figure out his next move, what do you say in a paragraph, short paragraph, to someone?
So one thing that I found is that no matter what the career path that you're on, everyone is looking at what is my personal identity, and how does that factor into my professional skill set, and what do I have to offer that is unique to me. And that's where it's a thing where people are struggling with. They're navigating through life. They're trying to figure out where they belong. Everybody is looking for a place where they belong. And a lot of times people that they work with may not recognize that in them, and so it makes them feel less than. But the reality of it is we all have our own brand. We all have our own unique skill sets, going back to our diversity and who we are. The thing for me that the takeaway that I have for that I would like to communicate to people who are kind of on the fence with whether or not they should do it. Look at where you want to go. Where do you want to be in life? What adventures do you want to experience, and can drone operations, using that as a tool in your toolbox, is that something that that can really help you get to where you want to be? You know, sure, there may be people who have a different career path that they want to follow, and drone operations may not be a part of that. But there are other people who may see drone operations as a tool that they can use to enhance their career and get them to a place where they want to be.
All right. Well, thank you, Don, for stopping by, and thank you too for joining us. And we'll see you next time when we talk to you about the drone advantage.